Welcome to another episode of the Office Altering Hire and Empower with Molly McGrath podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. If you're a first-time listener, hopefully you'll become a long-time listener. As always, I'm your show host, Molly McGrath, founder of Hiring and Empowering Solutions and creator of this revolutionary podcast. You can check us out at hiringandempowering.com. All right, you know how the saying goes, new year, new you. So we have a perfect conversation today, and we are going to be talking about mental overwhelm and overall gut health connection. I hear over and over and over again from our clients, from our members. We just launched a new law firm admin bootcamp, and in there, through the intake process, we heard over and over and over again, ironically, that the support team, the admin, and the attorney, the one thing if in 12 weeks we could decrease for them is overwhelm. So this topic is so appropriate, Amanda. Thank you. We have Amanda Hinman here, our guest, and it's hinmanholistic.com. We'll have it in the show notes. You'll hear us talk about this through all of our podcasts today. But Amanda, thank you for being our guest today.
Hi, Molly. Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation because just like you said, it is so pervasive, just in our culture as a whole. I think overwhelm, the experience of mental overwhelm is a chronic, consistent place for many people. So it's a really important piece to have, a good conversation for us to share today.
I love how you said chronic, and I love that you say consistent, because I think sometimes we trick ourselves, like right now, it's the beginning of the year. I'm overwhelmed because of all the possibilities that are out there, but yet I still have to cover payroll this week, or it's the end of the year, or it's the week before Thanksgiving, or it's a short week this month, or I'm going on vacation. I think people constantly out here, I'm stressed out, I'm overwhelmed, what have you. And I love that this is about mental overwhelm, because even if you're on vacation, even if you're what have you, it's still occurring, whether you realize it or not. So talk to us about this connection, this correlation between mental overwhelm and your gut health.
Sure, absolutely, Molly. Well, many of us are aware that there absolutely is an emotional piece to overwhelm, right? So it's the experience of, like you said, the never-ending to-do list, all of the life stressors, whether it be relationship dynamic, co-working dynamic, client dynamic. Those absolutely can be sources of emotional overwhelm or emotional stress. However, I think what is often marginalized or not necessarily brought to the forefront is the connection between the physiological elements, but that's what we're going to be talking about today, specifically gut health and overwhelm, mental overwhelm. And in particular, you may be familiar or have heard the term of your microbiome. Right. The microbiome is essentially a collection of microscopic organisms that reside inside our body, and they line our whole entire gut, which starts from the mouth and through your esophagus, your stomach, your small intestine and large intestine, all the way through your body. It is lined with these microscopic organisms, these little bugs that serve tremendous value and synergy in how our body functions every day. So when we think about the microbiome, those species, believe it or not, are responsible for producing certain hormones, certain neurotransmitters, even vitamin D is technically a hormone, but it's responsible for producing the raw materials that our bodies need to function well. And one particular balance is this interesting neurotransmitter balance between what's called GABA and glutamate. GABA is the number one most potent inhibitory neurotransmitter. So neurotransmitters are the little messengers that signal the synapses in the brain, and GABA is one that starts to calm down or, help you to mellow out the mental load activity. And glutamate is its corresponding opposite. It's the one that's an excitatory neurotransmitter. It's going to stimulate more thoughts, more, consideration, more rumination, if you will. So when we find ourselves in a place of having chronic, never-ending loop of thoughts or rumination or worry or considerations, likely we have an imbalance of glutamate neurotransmitter and not enough GABA neurotransmitter. And like I said, these microscopic organisms in our gut microbiome are a key role in maintaining that GABA glutamate balance. So that's a little technical, that's a little, kind of into the nitty gritty, but what is the takeaway from that? It's really the foods that we consume on a regular basis play a huge component in whether or not we have the type of microscopic bacteria bugs that are going to support GABA balance or have an imbalance in too much excitatory glutamate balance. So that's just one example of how our microbiome is going to affect our mental overwhelm, our mental load.
Which is fascinating to hear from you, because I love what you said in the beginning. So often the emotional piece, when you talk about that, when I hear overwhelm from clients, from either business owners or employees or what have you, myself, my kids, what have you, we feel like it's situational or circumstantial or something that's being done to us. And if I'm hearing you right, you need to start with the gut. If you're feeling this persistent, insidious overwhelm, when really, truly, I always have people like put pen to paper. I'm like, what is it exactly that's overwhelming you? And when they scratch it out and write it out, they're like, this doesn't make sense because it's not that much.
Yes. Well, and Molly, you nailed it, because we will always have circumstances that come up in our life that can lend itself to that rumination, that worry, that anxiety, or if we're in a place of resourcefulness, right? If we have adequate levels of GABA, our brain loop, the neurotransmitter activity, is going to allow us to be a little bit more creative in our thoughts around it, a little bit more maybe accommodating or accepting and recognizing that there's different vantage points, there's different perspectives. We can just kind of, I don't want to say roll with the punches, but you can come from a place of greater understanding, greater empathy, greater compassion, greater patience for yourself and for others, greater creativity and solutions, which isn't available if we don't have that balance in the brain. It's literally like, in layman's terms of describing it, it's almost like you can kind of close off certain areas of the prefrontal cortex that are not available for your creative ingenuity in terms of problem solving if that balance isn't actively opening that up, right? It's almost like we're in a chronic stress response, so we only have eyes to see a small portion of ways to interpret the scenario.
So if I'm hearing you right, like when you say the brain, but the brain and the gut are connected.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hear all the time, because as you know, we are speaking to an audience of high functioning, entrepreneurs, high functioning peak performers, constantly striving for bigger, better, what have you. A little different than what we teach in Thought Leaders Academy. Amanda and I both belong to an amazing organization you all hear by my coach, Sarah Cannella, who is teaching in the Law Firm Academy next week. I'm so excited, on your team members, about how to manage stress, how to manage emotions, how to really fix their mindset, so to speak, around all this. But when I hear you, I know so many entrepreneurs, myself included, that will hire all these strategists. I'm overwhelmed, so I need another coach. I need another, time template. I need another more organization and plan. And if I hear you right, like maybe go back to basics and start here, because you can hire all these experts. You can buy, the greatest 90-day planner, and all the things. Like I said, when people list it out, like, this doesn't make sense, and I'm this completely stressed out and overwhelmed mentally too. Like the rumination just won't stop. And if I hear you correctly, it's not really going to help you if you don't fix this first.
Yes, I would say there are two absolutely non-negotiable critical elements to give attention to and prioritization to. One is your food, your nutrition, right? Eating real whole foods as often as possible, in particular, things that are going to be containing healthy proteins, because we need to have those amino acids in order to, and this is another side of the gut and mental health piece that I didn't speak to yet, but in order to be able to detoxify those stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. Because when we're high performers, right? We are go, go, go. Well, guess what? That is absolutely a sign that your body is cranking on cortisol and or adrenaline on a regular basis, which isn't necessarily in and of itself bad. It's the imbalance. When it gets so skewed that volume of activity for those stressor hormones is really high. And then to put on top of it, the body doesn't have a mechanism of filtering that out, right? Imagine that we have adrenaline, right? We all know adrenaline is a fight or flight hormone response in the body. If you have a client situation or something that you have to respond to, you're going to likely have a surge of adrenaline that's going to help you to focus and help you to really kind of be on the top of your game in the moment, which may be really beneficial. However, the metabolites from that hormone and from that surge need to then be ideally excreted from the body. If they're not, they just continue to recirculate, which makes it more likely that you will be triggered faster again the next time. Have a stress response, right? So we just continue to have these stressor hormones circulating without being removed. It's kind of like the analogy of putting your trash in the kitchen garbage bin, and then you never actually take that garbage out to the curb to be collected. It just kind of keeps accumulating in the kitchen, right? No one wants that.
And then it's stinky, it's toxic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So
yes,
we need nutrients. We need amino acids and particular B vitamins, B12, B6, B9, B5. These nutrients are critical in order to help your body to be able to remove the excitatory stressor hormones after they've been utilized for that situation, right? So nutrition is key. It's absolutely vital. It also is the source of what feeds that microbiome. We talked about that GABA glutamate balance based on what type of food you're eating. If you're eating a lot of highly palatable, sugary, processed foods, that's going to lend itself to higher levels of that excitatory glutamate balance rather than the calming GABA balance. The other thing is non-negotiable, or is a really game changer piece, is sleep. We have to be able to signal to our nervous system that it can get into what's called the parasympathetic mode. Calm, relax, repair, digest, rest. Because if we're always in that sympathetic stress, go, 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 fight or flight, it doesn't know how to turn off, right? And sleep is a very powerful signaling agent to our body that we live in a world that is safe, that is abundant, that is going to be able to provide our needs, as opposed to having to stay vigilant all night long.
And it's so interesting because many of our high performers, I don't know if you've heard this statement, you could sleep when you're dead.
Yes.
You could sleep when you're dead. Or you listen to constantly where they can't go to sleep, right? And just constantly turned on and plugged in, which is an indicator if you're at that place where your body's not alerting you that you're yawning, it's time to rest, that you're feeling the exhaustion. So often I used to push through the exhaustion, and your decision making is not at its best. And then you're carrying over, to your point, that trash into your next meeting. So maybe it served you well in this meeting, but maybe not so well. And in my experience, where it doesn't serve you well are in the relationships that are the most. When it comes to client facing, closing a deal, swooping in and being the rock star and the superhero for the clients, we can fake it till we make it. But the second we walk off that phone call, that Zoom room, that conference room, that stage, given that $1 million speech or whatever it might be, then we just crash, and everything else in our life is where they get the toxic trash that was never taken out. Our home life, our relationships at home, but most importantly, in my opinion, are your employees who are there to serve your clients, who are there. And when you're, very condescending to them, short with them, frustrated with them, disappointed, short fuse with them, that is the reason that you're feeling that, proverbial turnover within your firm. So a lot of indicators, Amanda, that you're indicating right now, if you're feeling constant mental overwhelm, time out, check in with your body. I love these two. And then also paying attention where it's chronic and it's consistent and persistent, right? That's an indicator. You're not able to sleep. You are just constantly plugged in adrenaline and amped up or what have you. At some point, you got a short circuit, right?
Yes. Yes. And sleep is a critical, like I said, it's so important for our body to rejuvenate and replenish. And also mentally, the sleep cycle is meant to be that, I think of it as like a recategorization. There are different stages of sleep, light sleep and rapid eye movement sleep, and the deeper theta brainwave state sleep. That's meant to be almost like a mental clearing out or cleaning out. I think of it like brushing your teeth. If you don't allow yourself to consistently get into that full sleep cycle range, it's almost like you're not mentally sharpening up your brain, right? It's like if you were to skip brushing your teeth for a week straight, that's not going to be very pleasant. It's also not going to leave your brain as sharp and responsive as it could be if you had that full pattern in place. So two supplements, if you're open to me sharing two things that go a long way for people to help, especially if they find that difficulty winding down and activating that GABA balance before bed, is the supplement that includes taurine. Taurine is an essential amino acid that's necessary to create GABA balance, and L-theanine. And you can even find some teas, sometimes like a sleepy time tea and different things that can have L-theanine. But L-theanine goes a long way also to help people who have ADHD. It can really be supportive of easing yourself into a more restful sleep at night. So those are some ideas to look at, because sometimes it is about knowing what your body is going to need to help you kind of break the cycle and create a new pattern.
Oh my goodness, I love it. And I love it you mentioned for some people who may have ADD, because so often I'll have my high functioning entrepreneurs call me like, you need to know something. I have ADD or I have ADHD or something of that nature. And sometimes I'm like, no, you're an entrepreneur who needs rest. No, you're an entrepreneur who needs balance. 100% of call me and say, I have ADD, and some do, I'm sure. But what have you, there has been a book written by a strategic coach, which I know you're very familiar with, Sarah, being involved in Dan Sullivan's program. One of their students was in neurosciences, and he wrote a book about the direct correlation between an entrepreneur and a quick start and the misdiagnosis of ADD and ADHD because of many things that you're saying. No sleep, just constantly plugged in, just balls to the walls from sun up to sundown, and no self-care whatsoever, but then feeling really resentful, which the greatest definition, you guys are probably so sick of me saying this on my podcast, but the greatest definition I ever heard of resentment is self-abandonment. And I think you just completely, beautifully orchestrated that and laid that out.
Yes. That's good. I'm going to keep that one. I've never heard that definition of resentment.
Yes. It's when you abandon yourself, because especially to your point, when you have this mental overwhelm, no sleep, constantly plugged in, being the hero for everyone. But then once you crash, it's not pretty.
Yes.
So how can our listeners hear more about you, find you, and learn more about your work?
Thank you, Molly. Absolutely. Happy to connect people with hinmanholistic.com. Our team, we specialize in supporting women's hormone balance in particular so that they can feel absolutely the most vibrant, energetic, fullest version of yourself for all areas of life. Really feeling empowered and clear around how you can show up with vitality. So yeah, hinmanholistic.com. And, I mentioned we have a free gift, 3 steps to decrease bloating in 5 days. You can feel free to check out the resource section there and receive that free gift as well.
Oh, great. Amanda, thank you so much for being our guest today. We're going to have the free gift. And even though you specialize working with women by and large, everything you mentioned today, I'm just thinking of many of my male clients that this absolutely resonates with them.
Absolutely. This information we talked about today is applicable across the board.
Yes. Okay, great. So it's hinmanholistic.com. We're going to have that in the show notes for any of you walking, jogging, driving, doing kids, sports, what have you. It's HINMAN holistic.com. I'm going to have all Amanda's social channels in the show as well. And no more excuses. If there's nothing else that you took away from this podcast other than getting your lines of your B's, getting your taurine, getting your L-theanine. Okay, if you could give it to me, I'll Google search it. I'm going to put some links for you all to get this on the website, or maybe you have some links, Amanda, you could share with us of distributors that you are approve.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll share with you too, because I talked about B vitamins, one of my favorite B complex blends. That's really great. And another source using real whole foods is beans. Actually, legumes are a great source of various B vitamins in particular.
Great. So will you share the links in the show notes with these 3 that you would approve and give the thumbs up with?
I will.
Okay, great. So no more. Next time you feel that mental overload, pause. Check in on where you're at with your food. Check in where you're at with your supplements. Check in where you are at with your sleep before you go chasing more strategy to support you with overwhelm. It starts with you. It starts with your gut, and no more self-abandonment in 2023, because your people in your life need the good version of you, not this stressed out, crappy, exploding version of you, because you can only do that for so long. And I love the one quote that I heard before. If you don't make time to take care of your health, you'll be forced to take care of your illness.
That's true. Yes.
Oh, Amanda, thank you so much for this special episode. It's so perfect for the beginning of the year. We're going to have the link for Amanda's free gift and for all of her social channels so you can stay connected.
Great. Thank you, Molly. This was fun.
Oh, thank you. All right, guys. Until next time, continue being legal leaders, leading legal leaders. We've reached the end of yet another episode of the Hire and Empower with Molly McGrath podcast, where dream teams of entrepreneurs in an entrepreneur's world really do come true. Listen, whether you're a business owner, employee, executive, or hiring manager, we fully understand hiring, onboarding, and leadership is expensive, exhausting, often overwhelming, and absolutely time-consuming for the already taxed professional. Well, we have your back on all fronts. For 25 years and counting, we have transformed over 4,000 law firm teams into the most efficient, resourceful, and profitable asset of your business. Check out our Smart Hire solution, our employee leadership program, and the 66-day law firm turnaround at hiringandempowering.com.